Lord Christopher Monkton in his incredible ClimateGate Caught Green-Handed report that's up on his excellent investigative site that we'll be giving you the URL for. He's with us graciously for the rest of the hour to report on day 1 and 2 of the Global Government Takeover Summit. The UN's calling it the most important summit in history. YouTube says our future is being decided in Copenhagen. They're pushing it. Lord Christopher Monkton, 3rd Viscount of Monkton and Brenchley, has worked at all levels of government, has been a top journalist, has a scientific organization advising governments and corporations, was one of the chief advisors to Margaret Thatcher. The list goes on and on. He really needs no introduction. But Lord Monkton, we go to break in 3 minutes. We'll come back with plenty of time to break this down. But first off, the ClimateGate blew up even bigger than I thought it would. It is collapsing. You are now there at the center of these crooks trying to declare their global hegemon. Tell us what's happening in Copenhagen.
Well, it's almost as though ClimateGate hadn't happened, to be honest. The vast majority of the world's mainstream media have still not really said what's in the ClimateGate emails. They may have mentioned it once or twice, as the BBC have, not given it anything like the coverage it deserves, given the magnitude of the draft treaty which is under consideration here. When I went into the conference yesterday to ask for a copy of the treaty, I went to the UN Documentation Centre and said, right, I want the current draft of the negotiating text. And they looked at me as though they were baffled. You know, the librarian there, who had stacks of papers behind her in various languages, she just looked as though she'd never heard of it. So I insisted, and it took about 10 minutes, and they consulted each other. There were 3 or 4 of them arguing over it. None of them would produce the document. So I then did a quick interview with a passing TV camera and came back to the attack, and I said, look, I know this treaty exists because this is what the conference is all about. It's discussing a treaty draft. And they said, oh, no, we've got no such thing. And I said, well, you have, and I want it, and I'm not going to be put off. And if I am put off, there will be an international diplomatic incident. And only then did they produce a stack of papers 2 inches thick, 1,000 pages, most of which was just complete irrelevant. But right at the bottom of the stack, when I ploughed my way through it, I found hidden the draft, or the current draft of the treaty. And once again, they are desperately trying to conceal from everybody here the magnitude of what they're attempting to do. They really are aiming to set up a world government. They no longer use the word government in the treaty. I think we've frightened them off that. But all the institutions of this world government and the enormous powers it's going to be given over free markets to tax the American economy to the extent of 2% of GDP, to impose a further tax of 2% on every financial transaction, and that could come to a very large percentage of GDP overall, and to close down, effectively, the economy of the West, transfer your jobs, if you're listening to this, to third world countries. All of that is still in the treaty draft, even after all the negotiating rounds, even after the fuss that we've all made to try to make them rethink, and even after ClimateGate.
Well, this is just devastating information. So this appears to be breaking news because I've been doing searches every hour for the latest draft text, and the media was saying it wasn't released. There was this Danish text dealing with the way the taxes would be implemented. We'll find out if that's the same text you have. That's up on the London Guardian website right now. But this is massive breaking news. They're also reporting taxes on all air travel globally, taxes on all fuel globally, just a complete takeover. But this financial tax, wow. We have the fraudulent ClimateGate emails from the head UN-affiliated climate center in East Anglia. We have the fake hockey stick, the lies about the Arctic completely melting, the lies about polar bears and penguins can't swim. I'm seeing billboards all over Copenhagen saying, save the polar bears, they're going to die. Complete fraud. Big billboards of little girls saying, please don't let me drown. The most base, mindless, fraudulent information. Holdren saying 13-foot sea levels when the UN themselves says, what, 7 to 21 inches, and that itself based on a fraud. We have Now, Lord Christopher Monkton, because he is a member of the House of Lords, went in and demanded the latest treaty. This is breaking news. It has everything that was in the previous one and worse. You're going to hear this now breaking. We have the Danish text leaked of the architecture of this global government, how private corporate interest, IMF, World Bank, will run the system, not even the UN. So just that's got the third world now reeling, threatening to back out. The Saudis are calling for investigations. So much is happening. I'm going to attempt to go over all of this in the next 51 minutes with Lord Christopher Monkton, again, graciously joining us. So I'm going to try to just sit back, sir, and let you chronicle. You're there at Copenhagen. But also the good news, UN climate chief does say hacked emails are damaging. But as you said, they're like the cat caught with a canary in its mouth, going on about its business like it's no big deal.
They're trying very, very hard to pretend that ClimateGate didn't happen. People who've come to the conference don't really know that it happened because most of the mainstream media have still really not said what's in these emails. And what is happening is that the mainstream media have done themselves terrible damage by signing up to this climate nonsense and then by surlily refusing to admit that ClimateGate was happening, admit how serious it was, and simply inform their readers of what was actually in these emails. Admissions that while they're telling us, as the Met Office did just today, that today is the warmest decade since records began 150 years ago, privately what they're saying in the emails, the ClimateGate emails, is, hey, look, we've got a temperature which in fact has been falling, and we can't explain why, and it's a travesty that we can't explain why. So they're saying one thing to us publicly to maintain the scare, making them rich, and that's what's called fraud. It's criminal fraud. And on the other hand, they're saying privately, oh dear, we can't account for the fact there's been no warming for the last 15 years. I mean, it's very serious, this disconnect between what they're saying among themselves privately and what they're admitting to us publicly.
Absolutely. Talking about criminal investigations, Lord Monkton, we have Senator Inhofe calling for it, the Saudis calling for investigations, and the Saudis have pointed out the United Nations, the progenitor of this fraud, they can't run the investigation.
No, they can't, because the United Nations is thoroughly compromised in all this, because the climate panel that it created via the United Nations Environment Programme and the World Health Organization, namely this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which has produced 4 major reports on the climate, those 4 major reports are now all under a cloud, because all the major contributors to those reports, the lead authors, indeed the lead author of the entire science report of 2007, are part of these emails, part of this conspiracy to conceal, manipulate, tamper with, invent, make up, and eventually destroy data when it was requested by third-party scientists who wanted to check whether the various extraordinary claims they were making could possibly be true. It's a very, very serious matter, and there's no way the UN can be allowed to do this. I think this has got to go to district attorneys in the United States, and it's got to go to the police and the Crown Prosecution Service in the United Kingdom. It's already gone to the Information Commissioner because there are plain admissions in emails there over the years that they have been planning to avoid disclosing information to other scientists, which is contrary to the scientific method, as well as contrary to UK freedom of information law. But the final seal on that freedom of information thing is the email in which one of the people concerned wrote to all the others and said, you must destroy all your emails relating to our participation in the 4th assessment report of the United Nations Climate Panel in 2007, because we're being asked for it by another scientist under the Freedom of Information Act, so you must destroy it. That email clearly constitutes a serious criminal offence for which the highest possible level of financial penalty is allowed for by the Freedom of Information Act 2000. And the person who wrote that email, whom I won't name on the air because it's not fair to him, he is now going to face criminal charges. He is, I think, going to be indicted, convicted, and he won't be imprisoned because we don't imprison people yet for these offences. I think the law's going to have to change in the light of this. But he will certainly be subjected, as will his institution, to a very large financial penalty indeed, and quite rightly so.
Well, you're a member of the House of Lords, the upper chamber of your parliament, for those that don't know, Lord Christopher Monkton. Are you saying that the inside information that you're getting from government is that he will be prosecuted?
No, because because the government would be most improper if it were to involve itself anyway in whether or not to prosecute somebody. That is a function entirely of the Director of Public Prosecutions, who is an official who has to be independent of government. And also, I myself, although a member of the House of Lords, do not have the right to sit or vote. That was taken away.
No, I understand, but I'm saying you're saying you believe he will be charged, or you're
I think it is certain that he'll be charged. I myself, together with Professor Fred Singer, who founded the U.S. Satellite Weather Service many years ago, have written an official complaint to the Information Commissioner asking him to look into this, as has one of the people who had made a Freedom of Information request. Now, the person who made that information request has been answered. We have not yet been answered. And if I don't get an answer in the next few days, and as soon as I get back from this Copenhagen conference, I will be arranging for questions to be put down in the House of Lords about why the Information Commissioner isn't doing his job and replying to his correspondence.